For more on this and how markets are moving, I'm now joined by Ross Gerber, President and CEO of Gerber Kawasaki. Hello Ross, thanks for joining us. I'd like to get your thoughts on this global corporate tax idea. What would the impact be on big tech?
Well, I think that, it kind of makes sense for a coordinated tax, schedule for companies across the world, because it seems like, industrialized, mature countries are losing out to the, I would say, lower tax, higher growth countries. And we're really trying to create a system that makes more sense than, let's say, Ireland charging a way lower tax rate than England, for example, or France. And so this rate, I think, will happen. I think the issue is that the Americans want a much higher global tax rate than the rest of the world. And so I see this happening, but at a much lower rate than what the Americans want.
So what about the inflation concerns that have so rocked the market in recent weeks? Do you think, with prices rising and some American employers saying they can't get the staff, that inflation could get beyond the Fed's control this summer?
No, we think that we're going to see a pop in inflation on the short term, but we have many forces that will prevent inflation from getting out of control over the next year or two. And so we see this as a temporary effect of coronavirus causing a lot of disruptions in the supply chain, for example, in India right now, as well as the fact that we have a very high increase in demand very rapidly because of the reopening here in the United States, because of our vaccine success. So what we think is, over the short term, along with the stimulus that's been put into the markets this year, we'll see these rises in costs, but over the long term that they won't stay, as the economy will slow next year.
And let's talk about Bitcoin. The S&P 500 seems to be mirroring its volatility in recent days. So are its swings having so much impact now that they're moving the wider markets?
Yes and no. I think Bitcoin kind of feels like a risk sentiment indicator. So I think it's more reactive than per se leading the markets. The stock market is a much, much bigger market. In fact, Apple alone is bigger than the entire crypto market. So I think that the stock market has its own world, but it does look at the crypto world and whether people want to be taking risks or not want to be taking risks, and does take some cues off of it. But I do think crypto's in its own world, and the trading there is much more wild than what we'll see in the stock market.
And I know you're bullish on Bitcoin, Ross, but what about the environmental impact that's so worried Elon Musk?
Well, we've looked deeply into this issue, and many of the crypto miners from the beginning knew that the cost of energy would be a big factor in their profits, and moved to areas where renewable energy, as well as colder areas where you have the best opportunity to make profit being a miner. So even though crypto does use a lot of energy, and it's not per se the most efficient use of energy, when you look at all the other areas we use energy that are totally inefficient, like, let's say, YouTube or iCloud storage, whether it be video games or the current financial system. I mean, how much energy do banks use for no reason at all? I don't know. So I think what we really need to do is focus on renewable energy, period, whether it's for cryptocurrencies or for Las Vegas or anything. We need to have these solutions in place. So I see this as sort of a non-issue relative to the burning of fossil fuels in cars and planes, for example.
Thanks so much for that, Ross Gerber of Gerber Kawasaki.